It's a different day. I feared it would be. I wasn't sure if I'd have more time to film that day. I've been filming other videos today, hence why I'm wearing makeup. We are finally here to begin A Night and Its Moon. I will tell you that I peeked a little bit at the first page and whew, a couple more things that I wanted to mention that I forgot to mention in my intro, that I did hear that the author wrote this in like a weekend or something, like one of those fever dream things where you just write and write and write and pour it onto the page. That's fine. But also that she didn't edit it very much before she actually published it. And so there is, I believe, a more edited version of this available, and I don't know which version I got. So the errors that I point out, at least on perhaps a spelling and grammatical level, take that with a grain of salt. The newer version might have a lot of things fixed. I am still going to be talking a lot about the story elements because I don't know which version I have, and I don't know if the story elements are going to remain the same in the new version, but I think that this can be helpful either way. But keep that in mind as we go. Some things may be different in the latest version, so I do apologize if I have gotten the first version. Alright, this is a chonky one. This is a chonky one, and it makes sense if it was very stream of consciousness and wasn't edited very much. So this author definitely likes to take a lot of inspiration, I think, from C.S. Lewis. They have a C.S. Lewis quote to start, and I also saw a bit of like C.S. Lewis-y stuff, I think, like on their TikTok or somewhere. They were talking about how inspired they were by C.S. Lewis and those themes. I don't know. I'm always a bit iffy when an author quotes a famous author at the beginning of their book. To me, it feels a little bit like they're saying, I'm just like this famous author, but I could be thinking way too far into it. However, the other thing I hate, we got us a prologue. I am not a prologue stan. I believe that they should only be used very, very infrequently. There may be some books out there that you could convince me that that prologue needed to exist or the book couldn't go on without it. But generally, I think that most prologues are useless. You can chop them off and it doesn't hurt the book at all, in my opinion. Obviously, people are going to differ from this opinion. And anyway, I'm still going to have to read this prologue, so whew. Do you have your bingo card? I should have put prologue on the bingo card. Not all prologues make the books bad, but I did read this first page once before, so I'm having an easier time understanding it. But the way that it's written does seem like it's trying to be pretty flowery. It's seldom that a sound defines the course of history. A cannon might blast through a ship. Its splintering contact declaration of the early sounds of war. Sounds like you're trying to be a little bit pretentious here, friendo. What actually is the point of this? Yeah, Julian from the future here already reporting in. This whole big pretentious beginning is so pointless because the rest of this book does not have this big, like, world-changing tone. Neither of these characters are changing the world. They're not in a hurry to do jack shit. Something I noticed right away, this first page is all sounds. And it could be that the author is trying to make the point about sounds being very important in this moment, in this, like, historical moment. Or it could be that she started out talking about sound and has forgotten that other senses exist. This is just a little something that I notice. Just a little something to, like, watch out for. Matron Mabel pushed herself to the edge of the bed, her sleep-addled voice ready to be helpful. This implies that her voice is the thing that's ready to be helpful, not her. Just her voice. For some reason, for the first, like, page and a half, we call the character we're following the woman, even though other people get names. Until finally, kind of in the middle of page 2, she's called the Gray Matron of the house, and I'm curious why she wasn't named before this. So the Gray Matron is going to the door to answer this auspicious knocking in the middle of the night. She encounters a child. She stops dead in her tracks, and the book is like, any other child she would have ignored, but this one she's, like, stopped for. And I was like, okay, cool. What's she gonna say to this child? And she just tells the kid to go back to bed and then keeps walking. So, like, why did she stop? Would she have not told any other child to go back to bed? And then, of course, we find out about this child who is Knox, who we know from reading the synopsis is the main character. She's 3.5 right now. Also, Knox has bronze skin and coal-colored eyes. So Knox decides to follow because she's curious. She's a curious person. But it says her glossy hair helped to conceal her in the dark puddles of gloom. How would having glossy hair help conceal her? This is redundant. The carpet muted her footsteps as she padded along the corridor, allowing her to move silently down the hall. You can either have the carpet muted her footsteps or allowing her to move soundlessly down the hall. We're getting some telling. The girl was not just clever for her age, but had been born with a predisposition for cunning. And we finally get another sense. The stones are cold on her bare feet. She also seems to possibly have some, I don't know if I'm ready to call it a magical ability, but it might be something that turns out to be a bit of a magical kind of situation. She has a cleverness for shadows. We are kind of perspective hopping a little bit here, and I don't know if it's intentional because we have an omniscient narrator, or if it's a bit of a mistake. It's not like huge, but we were following the matron and then we started following Knox, and now we're getting point of view of the matron again, with it's just switching back and forth, and it might be an omniscient narrator thing. I will reserve judgment at this point and just know we are doing a little bit of head hopping. There's a lot of just telling us in sort of odd ways what's going on. It was clear he decided he'd had enough of cordial pretense. The man ignored her nonverbal denial for entry, pushing past her across the threshold. Agnes let out an irritated protest, but he was undaunted. It's kind of hard to describe why this is awkward to read. We're choosing a rhythm and a flow to these sentences that is sort of needlessly complicated. Instead of, it was clear he decided he'd had enough of cordial pretense, you could say, it was clear he decided he'd had enough, or it was clear he decided he was coming in. Also, Agnes let out an irritated protest. Instead of telling us that, have her make the protest. Give us a quotation of Agnes going, "Hey now," or "What are you doing?" or something like that. Again, we've hopped back to Knox's point of view, where we were just with the matron, but now we're with Knox again, just in time for the matron to whisper something that Knox can't hear, so we, the reader, don't know what it is. We have a lot of she going on without a clear definition of which she it is, and it's all in the same paragraph, too. She wished they'd shut the door, so we're in Knox's point of view. The storm was wetting the carpet and drenching the matron's clothes, hair, and face. A few stray droplets were carried on the blustering wind to kiss her face, hands, and knees from where she hid in the shadows. So again, we must be back to Knox because the matron isn't hiding in the shadows. She tried again to usher the man out of the hall. So this is the same paragraph. So we just go from where she was hiding in the shadows to she tried again to usher the man from the hall. We can infer which she it is in these moments, but she tried again to usher the man from the hall should be a separate paragraph, and it should start with the matron. Have to be clear with your pronouns. It might seem annoying, but you don't want your reader confused. Especially if there are two people of the same gender in the scene, you have to be clear which one is doing what action. Because of the head hopping, I'm not sure which character is experiencing these things or thinking of things in a certain way. So the guy who's at the door has revealed that he has like a bundle, which we all know is a baby. The matron says, "I don't do that anymore," even though she's got children all up in this place, so it seems like she maybe does. Maybe she's just closed to new babies at this time. Agnes finally closes the door, and it said that the new silence had a smothering effect. But who is feeling smothered? Is it Agnes or is it Knox? Because something like that will tell us how each character feels about a situation. And they probably wouldn't feel the same way about it because they're in very different parts of the situation, and one of them's a little kid. This is just weird phrasing. Agnes painted her words with disbelief. The man claims that he has brought a treasure and talks about feeding it. He says that it has already reached its first birthday, which we all know it's a baby. Obviously it's a baby. Here we've got another example of some awkward point of view issues. Agnes's face creased as her mind moved. And then it says, she seemed to experience conflicting emotions, implying that first on Agnes's head, because we know her mind is moving, and how else would anyone know that? It's her head. And then she seemed to experience conflicting emotions. So are we back with Knox, who is watching the situation? Stay in someone's head, for crying out loud, in the same paragraph. So I'm starting to think it's lack of skill and not an intentional omniscient narrator. Now they're haggling over the baby. We've had the reveal that it is a baby, and it went unremarked upon. So we're keeping it a secret what he's got for quite a while. And then we finally find out it's a stolen babe, and Nox doesn't react at all. So why weren't we told earlier that it was a baby? The only reason you conceal that from the reader is if it's also concealed from a character and we're waiting to see that character's reaction. But since there was no reaction, there was no reason to keep it concealed from the reader. We've got a little as you know moment where the man says to Agnes, "We've done business in the past," which you wouldn't say to somebody who you've done business with because they know they were there. This author also has a little bit of a problem that I have suffered from in the past. I think I've mostly gotten a handle on it, but that is telling us that a character is, say, looking conflicted and then describing how she looks conflicted. If that happens in your writing, you can then go back and eliminate the "she looks conflicted" and just have the part where she's chewing her lip or whatever, because that implies it already. That's showing it. You don't need to tell us and show us. Also, the cats are having a freaking party in here, so don't be alarmed by all of the noise. Apparently, when they were younger, Agnes used to straight up steal babies from the nearby village, and she just reassured herself that it was fine because the parents had too many children to begin with, so she was doing them a favor.
You're trying to kidnap what I've rightfully stolen.
And then we hop back to Nox, who is confused by what she just heard, but not because it just seems strange, but because she doesn't know what the words, like, children and villages are. I'm very confused by this. First of all, we're told that she's listening intently as the matron spoke, but none of the words made sense. It was a garble of odd language and strange words as she spoke of children, villages, and coins. So, does Nox not know what, like, villages and coins are? Or is she implying that the matron is speaking another language? I'm confused by this. Agnes has decided to tell this man, like, their backstory together about how they used to steal babies and she used to, like, justify it in her own head. I don't know why she's decided to do this, but okay. We're just getting kind of fed little bits about this baby, that this baby is special, that they want to make sure that she doesn't have any family that's going to come after her because she's one of them. We all know from reading the blurb that this is probably the other lead character who is, like, very pale-skinned and beautiful and elfin. And so they're like, she's probably a fairy, and they're like, are the fairies gonna come after her? That's my assumption at this point. Agnes again insists that she's done. Done with what? Because you clearly still have children here. So done with what, Agnes? Done with buying them? Do you only get them if they're free now? Like, what is happening? The Grey Matron has gone to get the money, and now little Nox, like, follows her tether to come out of her hiding place. We're getting a lot of descriptors here. His voice dropped with parental gentleness, though he framed his question with conspiratorial temptation. A lot of these paragraphs don't need to be here, and they could just be whacked out entirely. Keep the story moving. A lot of descriptors, things we already know being told to us again. Nox's hair is described as a shadowy curtain. A few pages ago it was called that. Call that again. Maybe don't use the same description for it so close together. Oh, her glossy hair is a shadowy curtain, so we really need to know that her hair is glossy and a curtain.
Julian from the future here. Fun drinking game. Take a drink every time Nox's hair is described as glossy.
Nox is like, it's a baby. Okay, but didn't we reveal that earlier on and she didn't have any reaction? Yeah, we did. Yeah. We definitely revealed that earlier on, and Nox had no reaction, and now she's, like, surprised that it's a baby. Apparently babies are very popular to be adopted from this place, this manor. It was called a mill. Is it a baby mill? At first it sounds like babies die a lot here, because Nox is like, babies didn't last long, but actually what it turns out she meant was that babies get adopted really quickly. And the older children like her, which begs the question, did these older children come here as older children, or for some reason when they were babies were they not adopted? Older children like her make up these stories about, like, being whisked away by fairies or some such, because I guess they don't completely understand where the babies go, even though she does say that she knows they get adopted. But maybe it's just more for fun. They yes, normal people come to adopt the babies, but the kids make up stories about like, oh, those normal people are really actually fairies or something.
Yes, I know, I keep interrupting, but look, I'm further along in the book than this version of Julian, and so I know that at the beginning of the book there was this sort of theme going on about characters telling stories to kind of create their own worlds or soften the harsh world that they lived in, and I was like, okay, I mean, I can kind of see it, but then the author forgot about it completely. And that is basically what you should come to expect from this book. The author will start something and then forget about it later on. So it could have been a cool, overarching theme about stories and storytelling, which would have fit in because this author is so bonded to this story, but instead she just kind of dropped it and abandoned it and forgot that it existed.
We have a very chunky paragraph all about the fables that the children make up about being adopted and how they all hope that it will happen for them, like in their stories, and a queen will come to adopt them or something. And I get it, but like, we're still waiting on a description of this baby. So Nox looks at the baby, and then she goes off in this lengthy random thought just about babies in general before we get a description of her, and we already know, because again, we read the blurb, that this baby looks unusual, so maybe we could get a description first, and then the stuff about the children making up all these fables. We finally get a description of the baby. She has white hair, white eyebrows, white eyelashes, lavender eyes. She is just very, very special. I have a sneaky suspicion that we're going to need to not like other girls this very soon. We'll wait just a little bit longer, but she is the special one by far. Nox says she's made of snow, and the man agrees with her, and thus ends the prologue, and honestly, that could be a chapter 1. It's fine as chapter 1. It is fine if there's a time jump between your chapter 1 and your chapter 2, especially if you're with the same characters, which we know we will be. Also, does this need to exist at all? Is it crucial for the story that we know that a man came in the dark of night, and that little baby Nox followed the matron downstairs, that they haggled over the price of the baby for a while, and that then Nox went and looked at the baby? How important is that? Are these all things that could come up organically throughout the rest of the story as we remember, as characters talk to each other? Again, that's just my opinion of prologues. They should be crucial to the story, or they should not be there. Alright, I'm going to shut off the camera and turn it back on, and we'll continue with chapter 1. So every time we finish a chapter, I think I'll look at my bad book bingo card and see if there's anything. I feel like it's kind of early. There were some weird metaphors / similes. Dangerously close to not like other girls territory. We are also dangerously close to minority there to help white straight main character. Now I know these two girls fall in love, but I am going to be on the lookout for the white girl being the most important one and the brown skin girl being mostly there to be supportive, helpful, putting aside her own wants and needs in favor of the white girl, and the just general overtones that I'm already kind of getting of the brown-skinned character being inherently sneaky or sort of criminal. I wish I had put head hopping on this bingo card because we could cross that one off right away. We have gotten some info dumpy moments, but nothing so big that I feel like it needs to fall into the info dump category. We were a little bit close with that whole random thing we went off on about how the children all have their own like fairy tales that they make up for themselves, but I'm not quite ready to call that an info dump yet. After all, this is only the prologue. Also, at some point, we went from calling Agnes the woman to the Grey Matron to Agnes, and I don't know when exactly that switch happened or why. Honestly, I would have either called her Agnes from the beginning or just kept calling her the Grey Matron because that sounds cool. We're with Agnes again though. We're starting in her POV. She's putting on her aprons, plural, before breakfast. She ordered the matrons to wash and brush the children after breakfast. That makes them sound like dogs. Did you brush the children? We have a hint of a religion. We have an all-mother. We're also learning about Queen Moirae and her lighted kingdom of Farhold and its counterpart, the Dark Northern Kingdom. So this author is definitely just smacking us in the face with the whole light-dark dichotomy. Oh dear. Here's that info dump I was worried about. All of a sudden, we're just being told all about the world. Just like, no reason. it's the thinnest of reasons. The children went for their lessons, but we're not experiencing the lessons with the children. It's just an info dump about the world. So everybody get out your bingo cards. Here we go, we have our first one. Go ahead and mark info dump. Now let's see if I can get anything out of this info dump to impart to you. So the sunshine bright land is in the south. The crops are good. There only good magic is to be used there. Any talk of dark magic is swiftly punished. Farley, which is the mill that the children are at, is at the northeastern border of the Sunshine Lands, which is what I'm going to call them. So we're told that the children often have questions about their world, about magic, about the shadowy place. We must never go there, Simba. About the Fae. We're being reminded several times that the Fae exist, which, I mean, is good that we know that they exist for later in the story. But again, having read the blurb, we know they're going to be like a major part of the rest of the story. But the matrons never go anywhere, so the children give up on asking questions. Also, apparently, the children only do their studies once a month. They get all dressed up and they do their studies for show because a monk or something comes to check on them once a month to make sure that they're all like healthy and clean and learning their lessons.
She had a pretty dress with bows and lace and a new pair of pants and a sweater to put on whichever child she was going to show off to the mayor. This way, every time the mayor came by, he always thought that Mrs. Mavilda was taking good care of her children.
Their all-mother goddess does seem to be very strict, fairly unimaginative as far as goddesses go. We're just being told all of this. We're not getting any of the children's experiences of it. We're not even getting the matron's experiences of it. We're just being told this happens once a month. This is what to expect. This is what the children do. This is all very Catholic school, bad Christianity kind of vibes. You know, the children are punished by having to write lines of like penitence until they were properly repentant. So it's all very Catholic boarding school, Catholic orphanage situation.
This does make sense because I've done a little bit more research and found out a little bit more that the author of the book did go to a Christian school. I don't know that it was necessarily Catholic, but she had a very bad experience with Christianity, and as we know, she just poured all of herself into this book, and it's fine, but it's something I've seen 8 million billion times, and it's like, I get that Christianity has hurt a lot of people, but I also kind of wish that those people could be more creative with their evil religions instead of just being like, I am barely going to hide the fact that this is just Christianity.
And as a church establishment, they don't have to pay the king's taxes. So we're not even trying with this religion. We're having a lot of big chunks of description that link to big chunks of telling. Obviously, the bishop is here, and the matron brought Knox down for some reason. I'm sure we're going to find out why. She didn't bring any of the other children, just Knox. Okay, so Knox is being used as a literal token at this point. She's trotted out to be present as a girl with dark skin so that the matron can get brownie points for having girls like her, in heavy quotations, in this baby mill. And yes, it is a potentially villainous character. We don't know how good or bad the matron really is, although she did used to steal children. So it's implied that she's not a good person who is using this child as a literal token. Knox actually doesn't mind being tokenized in this situation because it means once she's done, she gets to just go off and do whatever she wants. Knox goes to the room of her little younger bestie, who is, of course, the white-haired girl, who she calls Snowflake. Her nickname for this character is Snowflake. So Knox is sitting on a bed. This is an awkward sentence. Her feet dangled off the edge and hands on either side of the mattress, feet twisting impatiently. Maybe have a little look at that sentence. Knox takes Amaris out of the room where the other children are, and they go to Agnes's office to hang up the bishop's coat, but also to just, I guess, wander around the office. So we learn for a second time, because the girls are looking at a map, where they are located. So we could have had this instead of being told earlier all of that information about where they are located. We have the more worldly, knowledgeable, brown-skinned girl dealing with the sweet, naive, precious, white-skinned girl. She even calls her little princess. Oh, this chapter is long. This is a long chapter. I still have like 20 pages to go. I better get reading and stop pointing out every little thing. We get our first mention that the bishop wants to know if any of the children have manifested magical abilities. It goes by really fast, so I don't know if that's important. Nox is hiding Amaris, probably logical because Amaris is very clearly not a normal human. But also, doesn't the matron notice that the white-skinned, white-haired girl is just missing? Okay, I have not read The Witcher, but I have seen the show, and already I'm definitely seeing the vibes coming through. The Fae being considered a lesser class, being driven from the kingdom, being used as servants, people just seeing less and less Fae. Also, could we be more heavy-handed with our implication that Amaris is going to turn out to be Fae? I don't think so. I don't think it gets more heavy-handed than this. If all these chapters are going to be this long, I'm going to have to learn how to read faster. I am not a speed reader, and that does not help. My memory card is getting warm. It's like, it was so warm when I took it out. I hope my camera doesn't overheat. Let's go. I will say one thing. Many beginner writers have a problem with being underwriters. This is an overwriter. This book is overwritten. Definitely would have gone in and thinned it out significantly. So the girls go to the kitchen to hide Amaris and her amazing starlight colored hair. Her hair and her eyes keep being described as like beautiful, precious things. All we got for Nox's hair was glossy. But the matrons who are working in the kitchen are like on our main character's side, so they're like, yes, hide in here from the bishop. Oof, we are getting dangerously close to minority exists just to serve white straight main character. We know she's not straight, but she's very white. Amaris' hair smells like juniper, like freaking wow. Once again, we're reminded that the children are sold off, and we're given yet another list of people they could be sold off to. We don't need it. Of course, the very, very white little girl is the most valuable one. She's going to get the highest price, and so she's only shown off to people who seem like they have enough money for her. I'm really skimming now. Literally in my head, I'm going blah, 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 blah. This book is so overwritten. Okay, whose point of view are we in? We've been mostly in Nox's point of view, but now we've like head hopped a little bit. They hear a noise outside the pantry, and then Nox tells Amaris to hush. Muscles tensing with a peculiar readiness. Who thinks they're peculiar? Does Nox think her own muscles are peculiar? Or have we hopped to Amaris' point of view and she's now watching Nox and thinking that her tensing is peculiar? Yeah, she felt her back stiffen, her legs curling beneath her as if she were ready to run. Why does she feel like she's having an out-of-body experience? She felt her back stiffen, her legs curling beneath her as if she were ready to run. As if she were ready to run? It feels like Nox is literally having an out-of-body experience right now. We might have an unhinged bully, everyone. The door bursts open, and it's the school bully for some reason, who has done lots of bad things to the girls. Of course he has. This is just, again, very awkward sentences. The way his sneering face snagged on Aramis said enough. What? His face snagged on her? Again, we're told how Amaris is just the special one. She's babied. She's not given any hard tasks because they don't want to damage her perfect white skin. Oh, we have more children. It's not just the bully. The bully brought his bully friends. Nox looks around for the other people who are working in the kitchen, but all of a sudden the kitchen is just fucking abandoned. Why? Who knows? These bullies just literally came out of nowhere, and now we're having a full-fledged fight with them in the pantry, and the adults have just buggered off. Where did these bullies come from? Why are they here? How did they get away without having to deal with the bishop? Like, We have an exclamation point where it should be a question mark. Why? Exclamation point, she asked uselessly. As the girls are fighting the bullies, Amaris yells at them and they all start to leave, and I'm pretty sure this is like her magic manifesting. So that's why these bullies came the fuck out of nowhere, because we had to have the scene where her magic starts to manifest.
You must go, Your Highness.
But you know what? I am actually going to go ahead and give this an unhinged bullies, because they came out of nowhere. They existed only to be beaten by magic. Some of you might disagree with me about the unhinged level of these bullies, but hey, it's my bingo card. It is taking these boys forever to fucking leave. Rather than just saying they left, it was weird that they did, she's dragging out every single motion that these people make. I will comment on the action scene. We did have an action scene, we did have a fight. We kept the focus very close in with Nox. We didn't head hop over to Amaris at all. And ultimately, the action scene was okay. It was definitely readable. I followed it okay. Again, like everything so far in this book, it was a bit wordy. Could have trimmed it up a little bit. So I think we know why this book is so long, and I don't think it's probably because it needs to be. Again, your mileage may vary. You might not mind or even notice all of this extra that the author keeps throwing in. It does have that stream of consciousness feel, and I say this as a pantser myself. I have a feeling that this book was also pantsed, because she did say that she wrote it in like a fever dream of a weekend or a week or something like that. She wrote it unusually fast, which could very easily lead to overwriting, could very easily lead to stuff being in here that doesn't need to be in here. That is why we edit, and it doesn't sound like she did do a very good or committed job of that.
Books like this are quite frankly the reason that the stereotype exists, that pantsed books tend to be worse than plotted books, and that is because some pantsed books can wound up being written in this stream of consciousness fashion and then not edited. I do not write in a stream of consciousness fashion necessarily. Like I feel like I have a better idea than this author did of things that I want to be happening, even though I haven't written down any plans. My brain is fairly orderly and organized, and so it's not difficult for me to figure out what the next step is going to be, for me to use elements in the book that I've already brought up earlier in the book, and that's just down to having a lot of practice. Especially if you're newer though, and you are writing stream of consciousness, you probably are going to have to do a lot more editing, and that might also be where the stereotype comes from, that pantsers need to edit more, because especially with this kind of very clearly flow writing, you do need to edit more.
If you have the chutzpah to write a book in a month, write a book in a week, crank out this many words in a sleepless weekend, cool. But if you're gonna sell it, you must edit it. You must edit it thoroughly. You must edit it viciously. I believe the author is probably way too attached to this book to edit it as viciously as was necessary to cut out a lot of this fat. We seem to have switched over, again, without any preamble, into Amaris' point of view, and we're being told a lot about her personality without really being shown it. We're being told that she just took the bullying, that she was made to feel powerless time and again. She refused to stand up for herself, to be dragged off. But now, even though she's been passive in the past, now she's decided to stand up for herself. And it's like we're being told that this is a character arc that she had. And then in the space of chapter 1, I feel like it would have been better if we had been with her for most of this chapter and gotten to know her personality a little bit more, because she is the one who's having a magical awakening in this chapter. But instead we were with Nox for most of it, being told about Amaris. So the boys have left, and like literally seconds, it says within seconds, Matron Mabel burst into the kitchen. Where the hell were these women? The women are freaking out. The kitchen is a mess. The bishop is coming to see the kitchen right the fuck now. And Amaris is just out in the open being all lilac-eyed and starshine-haired. So the bishop comes in. Everything's a mess. Nox just managed to shove Amaris back into the pantry and shut the door and then stand in front of the door. We are given a description again. We were just given this description, but we're reminded what Nox looked like, all covered in flour and oil and everything from her fight. Huge paragraph, doesn't need to be there. Again, we are dangerously close to a person of color doing everything to protect a white main character. because Nox is willingly putting herself in danger and going to take the blame for this mess to hide her white-skinned companion. I haven't really been pointing them out, but there have been a few sentences that I have liked. The problem is they are immediately ruined by being either over-explained or repeated in different ways immediately after them. Let your powerful sentence be a powerful sentence on its own. Resist the urge to go into detail about it. We're getting another paragraph of how Amaris is so valuable. Please forgive the background noises. People are mowing on one side of me and using a saw on the other side of me, but we're so close to being done with this chapter that I'm just going to press on. So, we're told that the girls are friends, that they're each other's only friend, that they're so loyal to each other. And it would be great if we were given any indication of why they are friends, beside the fact that Nox has decided to protect this little special pale girl with all of her energy. I'm getting those cyborg tinkerer vibes of, believe me, we're friends because I told you so. As expected, Nox is being taken away to be punished for making the mess. So the bishop is like, we're gonna whip this girl for the kitchen being a mess. Whip her. Which isn't even something they do here because they're very into keeping the children like unscarred so that they sell for more money. We're reminded again, we were told this exact thing earlier in this chapter. The Grey Matron would never hurt her children in a way that would leave scars. This may be even the third time we're being told it. Please stop reminding me of stuff I've just read. If you are drafting, it's okay to repeat yourself like this. But then you gotta go back in your edits, again, you gotta be willing to really edit, and eliminate all but one of the times. I would make this time, the time where she's about to be whipped and Sister Agnes is taken aback by it, I would make this the time that we find out that the children aren't punished in any physical way. Also, again, in chapter 1, we were having the only brown-skinned girl here being whipped, which I don't need to tell you the historical significance of. And I believe that this author is American, so she really doesn't have an excuse for a lot of this. Everything that this girl has done has been to protect her white companion, who she keeps going on about how this person is more valuable than her, this person must be protected, and oh yeah, also they're like bosom companions, but we barely get any of that.
So, this is Julian from the future. I have not watched every single one of Piper CJ, the author's TikToks, although I do plan to go through them more. But I encountered one where she is specifically talking about the whipping scene. So I am not the only one to notice this. I am not the only one to bring this up to her. She's definitely trying to soften the blow. She knows. She's been told that this looks bad. And she's saying that because the violence is based on her real life experiences and because it is not specifically racially motivated, that it's okay. She understands the connotations of having a brown-skinned person being whipped. The context of America. She is an American author writing in America, but she's using the excuse of, well, I was corporally punished. I was beaten with a belt, which is not something that I condone, obviously, and therefore I can write it, which runs into that thorny problem of people who go, you cannot criticize this because I experienced it, which, in my opinion, is not true because the character that is being whipped is not you, Piper. You have written a brown-skinned character who you are having whipped. This is different than your exact experiences. This is not a great look for your book. She also showed a picture in the TikTok of the official fan art for Nox, which is considerably lighter than I was thinking that she was, and also other fan artists seem to think that she is, so I'm not the only one getting a darker skinned mental image for Nox. So you might want to make that clearer within your book, Piper, instead of just potentially trying to lessen the blow by lightening your character art outside of the book. She claims that she had a sensitivity reader who told her it was fine. I'm kind of dubious about this. So that's my whole thought, but sorry about the ramble, everyone. I had a different ramble filmed in person, but since I had seen this TikTok, I wanted to give you this ramble instead. One last part to the ramble, sorry. In the TikTok, Piper calls herself a person without color, which is not true, Piper. You are white. And being white in America, which you are, Piper, means that your world and your experience is very different from people in America who are not white. And you need to acknowledge that. And I know you're trying to by pretending that you're listening to these voices, but you're clearly not. You're just making excuses for it.
I know, I'm just a preachy white lady. So if any people of color would like to add their thoughts in the comments, please 100% do. And like I said, this sort of thing is pretty easy to fix. I would say the easiest way is to focus on the girls' friendship instead of this overwhelming need of Knox to protect this little white girl. Eliminate all of this nonsense about how she's like supposed to protect this girl, about how she's assigned to protect this girl, and make it so they are friends. Let us see their friendships, their interactions, give us some moments where they're both getting something out of the friendship.
And as for the whipping scene, that fix seems obvious as well. Have Amaris be the one who is whipped. Or perhaps, if you don't want to go all the way with her because she's so special, maybe the matron steps in at the last minute. You can still have that moment of someone receiving corporal punishment from the church without having the brown-skinned girl being the only one ever who is whipped. It's not even like other people are whipped routinely. She's the only one. And she does it to protect a white girl, and that's where you run into most of your problems. So just change it so that Amaris is whipped.
Okay, chapter 2 is a paragraph long, so we've got some unevenness going on here. But anyway, Knox like disassociates, so we don't have to deal with being in her head while she is whipped. She just like, she's floating above her body. She's fine. So I don't know why chapter 2 exists. It's just like, I might just read it to you, because it just feels like the author trying to be pretentious. There is a word for the space between moments. It's a term for a breath between heartbeats, for the emptiness that exists betwixt things, though its name is one that's been forgotten. So you're going to tell us there's a word for this and tell us that the word is forgotten. What's the point? The nothingness is much like a gap while one sleeps, how time seems to pause and resume between the last moment of consciousness. This space can be minutes or hours or months to stretch into years, everything blurring together as if nothing happened at all. The word is for the time that passes when no time is passing at all, yet everything changes. So that was chapter 2. I don't know what's going to happen in chapter 3, if we're getting another time jump, and this paragraph is to be like, there's a time jump coming up, and nothing happened in between, so don't worry about it. That's all I can think of. But I'm done reading this book for right now. Hopefully I will cut down all of my insane rambling. We back to our 30-page chapters here. Looks like it. Yep. Yes, we are. We are back to our 30-page chapters, so consider trimming those down just a little bit. Alright, see you next time.
Ohana means family. Family means nobody
gets left behind
or forgotten.
Amanda, Unicorn Jenny, Celia, SB, Taya, Alyssa, Rita, Deborah, My96, Afra, Melissa, AC, Swamp Goblin Waifu, Sophia, Merween, Kit, Light Julie, Belle, Patrick, Anne Sophie, Callison, Ray, Shelby, Zaire, Jesper, Rennie, Scribbling Cat, Savvy, Jenny, Amanda, Lisa, and Sarah. Fun fact, y'all, I used to be able to write down all of your names on a note card to read them off, but now you take up an entire notebook page. Y'all are awesome, and I appreciate you. Exciting news, everyone. We have a brand new patron to shout out. That patron is Amanda, and Amanda would like you to go check out their writing Instagram. They're just getting started, but you can go check it out. I will leave the link down below in the doobly-doo.
She had a pretty dress with bows and lace and a new pair of pants and a sweater to put on whichever child she was going to show off to the mayor. This way, every time the mayor came by, he always thought that Mrs. Mavilda was taking good care of her children. But after he left a donation collected by the townspeople for the orphanage, Mrs. Mavilda would immediately take off the child's clothes and put them away in a closet for the mayor's next visit.